have an RTA with 3.
The day the pirates picked the wrong ship. What if everything the world believed about modern maritime security was only half the story?
This is the first hijacking of a large commercial vessel off the coast of Somalia. At least 8 Sri Lankan crew members were reported on board. Pirates launching more than 230 attacks now.
In the 21st century, an era of advanced surveillance, military drones, and satellite tracking, entire ships still manage to disappear, not into the fog of history, but into the hands of Somali pirates operating with ruthless precision.
We're about to bring you inside a very dangerous, real world where a war is raging.
These weren't the rum-soaked caricatures of old. These were armed groups with GPS, insider intel, and no fear of global powers. Off the Horn of Africa, piracy became an industry. Hostage-taking became business. And global powers, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. But attacking a US Navy with a small boat and a few rifles? Come on! Beneath the surface of sensational headlines and viral clips lies a deep, tangled web of botched rescues, military gambles, and billion-dollar ransoms, a maritime war zone hidden in plain sight. Somali pirates attack US Navy ship. They thought it was just another merchant vessel, small silhouettes on the horizon, heavy with cargo and seemingly unguarded. But as the pirates closed in, they realized, too late, that they had just targeted a United States Navy warship. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Warning shots turned into a full-blown firefight. The pirates, completely outgunned, tried to flee, but the Navy wasn't about to let them go without a lesson. What followed was not just a rescue, but a reckoning. The USS Ashland returned fire with overwhelming force, destroying one skiff and capturing the pirates who survived. The Navy secured the area, took prisoners, and escorted them back for prosecution. The footage of this encounter became viral almost overnight, serving as a cautionary tale for other would-be hijackers. It also sent a chilling message across the pirate networks. Not all ships are prey. Some bite back harder than you can imagine, and their claws reach far beyond the shore. 20 million hostage nightmare. Somali pirates hijack oil tanker.
This is the first hijacking of a large commercial vessel off the coast of Somalia. At least 8 Sri Lankan crew members were reported on board. Pirates launching more than 230 attacks now.
A giant oil tanker disappears off radar, and days later, a chilling message is received. The crew is alive, but only if the owners pay $20 million. Held at gunpoint in sweltering heat, the sailors survived on rationed food while negotiators scrambled. It would take months of secret communications, fake-outs, and one last dramatic standoff to bring them home. The Sirius Star, seized more than 450 nautical miles from land, shocked the maritime world with the sheer boldness of the attack. The operation had required logistics, planning, and confidence. Pirates knew what they were going after. The ransom was finally delivered by airdrop, and the pirates fled, though some drowned when their skiff capsized in rough waters. Investigators later discovered communications between pirate financiers and insiders who may have shared the ship's route. This hijacking remains one of the most expensive and daring ever pulled off, a haunting reminder of how far pirates were willing to go for a payday and how vulnerable even the largest ships can be when help is too far to reach. The French Navy's daring rescue operation. When a French yacht was hijacked by Somali pirates, it set into motion a series of events that tested France's resolve, military precision, and moral compass. Authorities had a choice: negotiate and pay the ransom, or launch a risky military operation. They chose the latter. What unfolded was a textbook commando raid. Under the cover of darkness, French special forces stormed the vessel, neutralizing the pirates in a matter of minutes. Night vision footage revealed a tightly coordinated strike with minimal room for error. But the success came with a heartbreaking cost. One of the hostages, a civilian, was killed during the operation. A tragic outcome despite the swift military victory. The captured pirates were later put on trial in Paris, sending a powerful message about France's stance on terrorism and piracy. It was one of the first instances where European powers executed justice not only at sea, but in courtrooms too, reaffirming their ability to project power across borders and oceans. Pirates vs. Snipers, the Maersk, Alabama showdown. It was the hijacking that inspired Hollywood's Captain Phillips, but the real story, far more intense. U.S. Navy SEAL snipers, positioned on the USS Bainbridge, waited for the perfect moment to act. One synchronized volley of bullets, and 3 pirates dropped instantly. Captain Phillips was saved, but the world got its first glimpse of America's zero-tolerance stance. The rescue mission, dubbed Operation Neptune Spear, became legendary. The SEALs fired from a moving ship into a swaying lifeboat, a feat requiring precision, nerves, and ice-cold focus. President Obama gave the go-ahead personally. The surviving pirate was captured and tried in the U.S., where he was sentenced to over 30 years in prison. The operation sparked discussions across global naval forces about protocols, hostage rescue ethics, and the deterrent power of elite military response. While the movie captured much of the drama, the real operation demonstrated that tactical precision could still be the greatest weapon against modern piracy. Pirates hijack Ukrainian ship full of tanks. Somali pirates weren't just hijacking yachts, they captured a Ukrainian freighter carrying 33 Soviet-made tanks and munitions. Instantly, the incident escalated into a geopolitical nightmare, with multiple nations demanding control of the cargo and pirates refusing to back down. The standoff became one of the most tense in piracy history. The U.S. Navy shadowed the ship, worried the weapons might end up in terrorist hands. Intelligence agencies scrambled to decode the ship's actual destination. Was it Kenya? Was it Sudan? Was it a cover for an illicit arms deal? Months passed before a ransom was paid. When the ship was finally released, many asked how such a high-risk cargo was left so vulnerable. The case revealed alarming gaps in maritime law enforcement and raised fears about the potential for arms trafficking through piracy. The MV Faina incident forced military planners and cargo companies to reevaluate what they considered high risk and changed how arms shipments were escorted around the world. The MV Iceberg One ordeal, the longest captivity in Somali pirate history. In March 2010, Somali pirates hijacked the MV Iceberg One, a Panamanian-flagged cargo ship with 24 crew members from 6 countries. The ship was anchored off Puntland, where the pirates held the crew hostage under brutal conditions for nearly 3 years, making it the longest-known hijacking in Somali piracy history. With the ship's owners bankrupt and ransom talks stalled, the crew was abandoned. Food and medical care was scarce, and reports later revealed that 1 crew member died and others suffered severe abuse. The world forgot them. Finally, in December 2012, the Puntland Maritime Police Force launched a daring rescue. A brief but intense firefight ended with multiple pirates killed and all surviving crew freed. The MV Iceberg One became a chilling example of how piracy isn't just about hijacking ships, it's about erasing lives in silence. The MV Suez hijacking, chaos in the Gulf of Guinea. In March 2022, a dramatic hijacking unfolded in the Gulf of Guinea, an increasingly dangerous zone for global shipping. The MV Suez, a bulk cargo ship transporting wheat, was navigating the waters off the coast of Benin when it was suddenly ambushed by heavily armed pirates. In a swift and violent assault, the attackers stormed the vessel and abducted 17 of the 22 crew members on board, vanishing into the vast ocean without a trace. The attack was brazen and chilling. These weren't opportunistic looters. They were organized, well-equipped, and had a plan. Using fast skiffs and automatic weapons, they executed the boarding with military-like precision. The ship was left adrift as the captives were taken to an unknown location, launching a race against time to find them. But what followed was confusion. Details about the fate of the hostages were murky at best. Rumors swirled of ransom demands and secret negotiations, but no official statements confirmed their release or escape. The opacity only added to the terror. Families waited in silence. News outlets speculated. Governments stayed quiet. The hijacking of the MV Suez wasn't an isolated act. It was part of a growing pattern. The Gulf of Guinea has overtaken Somalia as the world's piracy epicenter. Economic desperation, ineffective law enforcement, and vast unpatrolled waters have turned the region into a haven for maritime kidnappings. This was no longer piracy for plunder. It was piracy for people, and it's still happening. The Aris 13 hijacking, a resurgence of Somali piracy. For years, international naval patrols had pushed piracy to near extinction off Somalia's coast. But in March 2017, the hijacking of the Aris 13 oil tanker shattered that fragile calm. It was the first successful hijacking of a large commercial ship by Somali pirates since 2012, raising fears that piracy could be making a dangerous comeback. The Aris 13, with 8 Sri Lankan crew members aboard, was captured near the Horn of Africa. Pirates quickly moved the ship to Alula, a coastal village notorious for past pirate activity. But this time, international response wasn't the solution. It was local clan elders, tired of the instability piracy brought to their shores, who intervened. They negotiated directly with the pirates, convincing them to release the ship and crew without ransom. The Aris 13 incident reminded the world that while military might could suppress piracy, sustainable peace depended on local communities. It showed that clan diplomacy and grassroots leadership were often more effective than firepower in deterring future attacks. The capture of the MV Ruen, Indian Navy's swift response. In March 2024, pirates hijacked the MV Ruen in the Arabian Sea, reigniting concerns about the safety of commercial shipping routes in the Indian Ocean. But this time, the response was swift, precise, and decisive. The Indian Navy immediately deployed INS Kolkata, a guided missile destroyer, to intercept the vessel and rescue the crew. The pirates had already changed course and were moving the ship toward a suspected safe haven off the Somali coast. But Indian naval forces tracked the ship using drones and satellite data. What followed was a high-risk intervention. Indian commandos boarded the hijacked vessel and overpowered the pirates in a close-quarters operation. No crew members were harmed, and the pirates were taken into custody. The rescue of the MV Ruen underscored India's growing role as a regional security power. It also served as a powerful message to pirate networks. The era of impunity was over. Countries like India were no longer willing to wait for diplomacy. They would act decisively to protect their interests at sea. Operation Dawn 8, Iran's fierce battle against Somali pirates. In August 2011, the Gulf of Aden was a battlefield disguised as a shipping lane. Once a vital corridor for international trade, it had become a gauntlet of risk, where tankers, freighters, and fishing boats disappeared under the shadow of Somali piracy. That summer, the Iranian Navy launched one of its most aggressive anti-piracy missions to date, Operation Dawn 8. It all started with a distress signal. The Iranian cargo ship MV Nahang was under siege. Over 30 pirates, armed with AK-47s and RPGs, had encircled the vessel in a coordinated assault using multiple high-speed skiffs. Their objective was unmistakable: disable the crew, seize the ship, and vanish into the maritime ether. But fate had other plans. Iran's 14th Naval Fleet, patrolling nearby, intercepted the call. Within hours, a missile-equipped escort frigate closed in on the ambush site. What ensued was a rare, all-out naval firefight. The Iranian warship engaged the attackers head-on. For nearly 40 minutes, gunfire echoed across the sea. Several pirate boats were blasted out of the water. Others capsized as their operators panicked under the barrage. Survivors leapt into the ocean, while a handful were pulled aboard and arrested. The merchant ship's crew remained unharmed, and the vessel was secured. But Operation Dawn 8 wasn't just a tactical win. It was a strategic statement. Iran had acted alone, without NATO or coalition support, asserting its naval power and signaling its independence on the global stage. Beneath the heroics, the incident hinted at a deeper shift. These pirates were no longer ragtag opportunists. Their numbers, weaponry, and coordination suggested backing, potentially from regional warlords or criminal syndicates. The era of disorganized attacks was slipping away. What was rising in its place was something far more dangerous and organized. The MV Beluga nomination hijacking, a German ship seized. In January 2011, Somali pirates hijacked the German-owned cargo ship MV Beluga nomination in the Indian Ocean, approximately 400 nautical miles north of the Seychelles. The ship was carrying heavy-lift cargo and had a multinational crew on board. Pirates stormed the vessel using ladders and light weapons, quickly overpowering the crew. A distress call was sent before the ship lost communication. Naval forces from the Seychelles and the EU responded, launching an attempt to intercept the ship. The mission became more complicated as the pirates managed to evade immediate capture and fortified their position. Reports later emerged that 2 crew members were killed during the standoff, either by the pirates or in crossfire, though details remain contested. After prolonged negotiations, the pirates released the ship and surviving crew in exchange for a ransom. The Beluga nomination incident highlighted how fragile rescue attempts can be when hostages are caught in the middle. It was also a grim reminder of how far pirates were willing to go to maintain control, and how often negotiation was the only viable path to resolution. The MV Albedo hijacking, a prolonged captivity. The MV Albedo, a Malaysian-flagged cargo ship, was hijacked by Somali pirates in November 2010 and held longer than almost any other vessel in modern piracy history. The pirates seized the vessel in the Arabian Sea and took 23 crew members hostage. Unlike other cases where negotiations ended quickly, this one dragged on for more than 2 years. The ship was anchored off the Somali coast near Haradher. Over time, several crew members died, some reportedly from illness, others possibly executed to pressure negotiators. The pirates demanded a $10 million ransom, but the ship's owners declared bankruptcy shortly after the hijacking, complicating negotiations further. Families of the crew began raising money themselves to help secure the hostages' release. Eventually, in 2013, the hostages were released after a privately raised ransom was delivered. The MV Albedo itself sank in 2013 during a storm while still under pirate control. The harrowing ordeal of its crew served as a painful reminder of the human cost of piracy. It also exposed the weakness of international legal frameworks in dealing with prolonged hostage crises at sea. The MV Iceberg hijacking, an Italian tanker's ordeal. In February 2011, Somali pirates hijacked the Italian oil tanker MV Iceberg in the Indian Ocean, roughly 500 miles off the Indian coast. The ship was transporting crude oil from Sudan to Malaysia with 22 crew members on board, including 5 Italians and 17 Indians. The pirates boarded the tanker using ladders and firearms. They immediately took the crew hostage, steering the vessel toward the Somali coast. Italian naval ships monitored the situation, but were unable to intervene directly due to the risk of harming the hostages. Negotiations began almost immediately, but they were long and arduous, lasting over 10 months. During captivity, the crew was kept under tight surveillance, enduring harsh living conditions. Food was limited, and contact with the outside world was scarce. Eventually, the shipping company paid an undisclosed ransom, and the crew was released in December 2011. The ordeal of the Iceberg crew demonstrated the limitations of naval power when hostages are involved and added further urgency to global efforts to find safer shipping routes and more robust deterrents to piracy. What finally ended the Somali pirate epidemic? By 2012, pirate attacks had dropped dramatically. Was it the navies, the armed guards, the fact that pirates were being hunted down like terrorists? In truth, it was all of the above, plus one surprising factor: local backlash. Coastal clans, tired of the chaos, began turning in pirates for money. The end didn't come with a bang, but a quiet, calculated shift. International forces began patrolling key choke points 24/7. Surveillance drones tracked pirate activity from above. Local elders imposed tribal justice on those who defied ceasefires. And international aid helped create alternative jobs. Non-governmental organizations launched programs to rehabilitate former pirates, offering education, fishing tools, and small business grants. Pirate financiers were targeted in offshore banking crackdowns. Slowly, the risk began to outweigh the reward. What killed Somali piracy wasn't just bullets. It was pressure, persistence, and a change in public will, led from both the sea and the soil. They vanished into the waves, but their legacy didn't.